What's up, guys? I'm actually at work right now, but it's very slow and not much to do. And I've been meaning to get this video out for a while, and it's really been kind of flowing through me, all these ideas. And I've been discussing it recently with others, whether online or just contemplating it in my head. But I really want to get this video out, so might as well do it now. I may be, stopping this video at certain points based on whether people come through the door or not. I work in a little office here. I'm managing, but just be aware. So, I see a lot of people are stuck to two main ideas about this place, right? Very attached to it. That's what I mean by stuck. Whether that this place is a school, or whether this place is also a form of a school, yet we learn through suffering, or we were maybe even punished to come down here to suffer and facilitate growth, right? Facilitate this idea that we need a catalyst, a dark catalyst, to realize our light. And both of these ideas are very much promoted in this New Age movement, this new Age form of thinking, which is not really new. It's been passed down the line for a while now, actually. So this idea of suffering, let's discuss that first. Or suffering to create growth. There's no doubt that that is a form of catalyst to promote something. It is a growth, but maybe not the way that we as people that would like spiritual advancement, let's say, advancement in quotations, would see that growth. It creates growth, but in a different format, in a different category. What happens when someone initiates suffering, or an event initiates suffering on a being, let's say, it creates a cycle. For example, someone goes and inflicts pain to someone else, or someone goes and takes something from someone else. That someone else then starts suffering, right? Oh, I lost my thing, I'm hurting, or whatever, right? And you can say, oh, if he lost the object, he's attached to the object, he doesn't have to actually suffer because he's just simply attached to a material object that technically doesn't really exist. But that can be a form of spiritual bypassing if you're not ready for that sort of level. So that person that says, okay, well, that guy took my stuff, or that guy punched me, that means I have to now defend myself in some way. So progress starts happening in the area of defense, maybe even in the area of offense. They start developing technologies, weapons. They start thinking towards now their goal. But again, the progress goes towards this different goal than what we may think is growth. The goal is now to either prevent the enemy, right? There's now an enemy. There are two sides and they're fighting from attacking, or to go on the offense and try and claim their lost materials, or inflict pain as revenge, right? The real progress would potentially be, oh, person hurt me. Yes, let me take steps to create these boundaries. But I understand that it's just an illusion, that hurt really only happens here. And by me not participating and re-engaging in conflict with that person, I am not creating a dual cause and effect to then keep perpetuating a cycle of violence, or a cycle of repeated action that caused this situation. And we see this in cycles of abuse, right? The parent grows up traumatized from an initial point, because there's always an initial point in this matrix. It's a dualistic matrix that then perpetuates a cycle. The father raises the son or daughter. They become abusive in their own way, in which they lack love. And that keeps going. And finally the one child that breaks the cycle then these entities may come in and perpetuate this idea that, oh, you only got that good because of that trauma, right? And it's a good. And these beings then come in with that premise, right? And they say, oh, it's because of us, because of all the harm we did, because of our sacrifice to become these negative beings, we're promoting your growth. And this idea is promoted in the Law of One. If you've ever read the Hidden Hand interview, Hidden Hand, again, right? That's a symbol of Masons. They think they're destined to be shepherds for humanity, puppeteer them, promote evolution for them, right? Evolution, evolution, really, right? And it's a cop-out, pun intended, because they act as good cop and bad cop. See, this duality, this matrix, works in the form of balance. So they need to match their good with their bad to create the balance. Otherwise, because they control both sides, right? They control both aspects of that matrix. Otherwise, if they simply only create good in some place and they don't worry about the bad, then a bad will arise in another form, right? Some way or another. If they only focus on the bad, then a good will arise out of their control in some form or another, right? That's why they play both sides. They are both the angels and the demons. Really good and popular Twitter account talks about this on his platform, and the god of both of these sides being something known as Abraxas, or really the demiurge, right? It can play both sides, and that's what the Masons consider the grand architect of this universe. It's something that, right, if we're all pieces on a chessboard, someone has to be playing these pieces. And it brings this idea that, well, if we're not even the ones making the decisions, if we're not even the ones moving the pieces, then we're not really responsible for our actions, and we cannot be blamed for what happens here, right? You're manipulating egos, you're manipulating personalities. You've got knights going to war with queens, black queens, white knights. Whether you're a pawn or a king or a queen or a rook, whether you're the most powerful piece on the chessboard or the weakest, you're still on the chessboard. You're still just a piece. And they give you this idea that you can promote yourself if you're a pawn to become a queen and to become really powerful on this chessboard, right? It's still part of their control, just like all these elites or celebrities, celebrities. They're in a cell. They're all controlled. No matter how much power they think they attain in this material world, the real power is in the spiritual, beyond this illusion, and beyond even the astrals, however far that may go, because that can still be part of their manipulation. Once you can manipulate the areas of the astrals that create here, once you can attack it, once you can implant it, you can manipulate that, right? So this idea that suffering comes in and catalyzes it is to their manipulation, of minds. That's all they really have, is a system of limiting beliefs that they hope you will engage with, you will give credence to, and you will fall into their trap to then create a sort of trauma bond with this place. They'll make you feel special. They'll tell you you're a hero. They'll tell you you need the lessons, the suffering to make you better, right? But what's getting better? It's just your ego. It's just the idea that you're growing, that you're becoming a more special person, right? I mean, I fell into this trap when first, falling into this new age, and the idea that I had to become more and more spiritual. But what is that? That's just virtuism. That's just the ego masquerading as something spiritual. And even your mainstream gurus will talk about this, saying, don't try to be spiritual, just act, just be, right? Just be who you are. But that's not the full truth, in my opinion, because you can then use this as a way to feel better than others, right? As a way to believe that you're better in some way than others. because again, we're growing. That implies that everyone is at different levels, and certain people are better or higher than others, right? No, I don't think so. I think we were all created equally. We were all created with gnosis, with the ability to understand love. And what may have happened is that this game, this virtual reality of duality, was created, but in a much milder form, right? Then we came down here. We may not have been able to handle it. We started creating these thought forms, these egregores, these entities, and our own creation got the best of us, potentially. Our own creation trapped us here. Or this idea of, the Sophianic being, Sophia, like the Gnostics propose, created this demiurge that then created its own reality as a copy of the true reality. And we somehow got pulled in here, whether it was through a marketing scheme or through all of Sophia's essence that was stuck here, right, from Adam and Eve, and that got fractured over time. Maybe we are all just components of Adam and Eve. Regardless, though, besides the point, that is showing that, hey, if we are growing, if we need to evolve, if we need suffering, that means we started from an origin, from a smaller point, from a point of ignorance. And we know that's not true, because the moment we leave our body, it's like we know everything. We're then connected to that field. Or not leave our body, but when we die, let's say, and we're re-immersed in the astrals, it's like we have connectedness again, right? So what really is that we've been separated and we forgot. We are now trying to remember the truth. And that's what this idea of truth really is. The real definition is a remembering, right? That's why we have our memories wiped, because we may at certain points even remember here, and once we die, we may be fed info, or we may be reconnected at some level there, and sort of figure this stuff out, because they catch us along the way, right? They pull us back in. They guilt trip us, they blame us, they shame us, and they throw us back in here. Or we agree to it at some level, of course, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to put us back down here, right? They use either passive threats or some sort of manipulation to bring us back down here. So then we go back to this idea of trauma, and people that may have gone through lots of trauma, and their belief is attached to the fact that that trauma made them better, right? And a different point to go with this is that, well, how were you as a person when you were in that trauma? Probably very angry, probably very depressed. You had some sort of addictive tendencies to try and cope with that trauma, right? You weren't fully present, you weren't fully there. And to be, that better person, you have to be fully self-aware, or at least mainly self-aware, so that that higher consciousness can flow through you, and you're not simply acting from that traumatized, fractured ego state, fractured personality. So really, did that trauma help you, or was it more of an antagonistic situation or component to your life? And when you awoke, when you broke free of that cycle, then you started becoming your true self, right? Who you really are, this divine spark being that you were all along, but the trauma created an overlay onto your true self, created a false self. So whether it's intense pain, intense pleasure, or persistent mediocrity, the reason people wake up, the reason people question their reality, is not because of these situations. The common factor in all of those is their ability to question, is their natural predisposition to think critically, become self-aware through this questioning. Why am I here? Why are things so good? Why are um, these things happening in my life but not theirs? Why, right? This idea of reflection. And they know this, the beings that run this matrix know this. That's why they've tried various forms of matrices, in which some of them were intense pleasure, right? Nothing but love and light. Nothing was happening, right? We have the idea of the Garden of Eden. And there are other forms where maybe there were complete destruction or only war. But what they may have achieved is this current matrix, in which it provides the most optimal loosh, the most optimal energy farming, and the most optimal control of minds and ideas, where people have just enough good to put up with the bad, right? And we've seen this idea of matrices getting reset. You know, the other ones were just not good. We've seen this in 1899, archived matrices at the end, right? We've seen this in the show. I'm talking about the show 1899. The show A Good Place, or The Good Place, where every single time Kristen Bell just keeps figuring it out that they're basically in hell, right? She just figures it out. And I think that's a great idea of the show that they showed there. She just kept figuring it out no matter what they did. You know, her soulmate was actually someone she had intense differences with, but they ended up getting along regardless because of that divine spark within them, because of the ability to question and think for themselves, and you know, the unconditional neutral love that really is. That's what we really are. We are these neutral beings. We don't elicit charges in our natural form, because charges, positive and negative, exist only here in duality. That's why it's electromagnetic. They're combined. It's a dual cage, right? The what's it called? The Taurus, right? They tore us apart and they put us in these cages, Taurus fields. And they just kept figuring out. They kept waking up, so they had to keep resetting the matrices, right? The architect, Mike, I believe his name, in The Good Place, looks like the typical architect that they show in other shows in Westworld and The Matrix. That's a movie, but you know what I mean. And that's really the idea, that nothing is actually happening because it's fake. It's a copy. It's an illusion. So where is the growth? There's no growth. How can an infinite, purely dimensional being grow more than, or an eternal being grow more than it already is? Right? The true source is someone that is, or something, or not even, it's nothing. It's undefined. It's unspoken of. It's unnamed. Any being that claims to be source and calls itself by something, or you know, asks for worship or asks for material objects, goods, is not source. It is unnamed. It's already fulfilled. We as beings are already fulfilled. Yet we may have wanted to experience this, whether it was through manipulation initially, or through our own creation initially, or even through our own capture, like I said at the beginning of the video. So that's still unclear to me in my perspective. But you know, that's where all this comes in. And I've actually picked up this really interesting book called Can You Stand the Truth? It was recommended to me by a few people, so thank you for the recommendations. Really good. I saw how I started tapping into the author's consciousness prior to even picking up the book, because a lot of my ideas matched up to the author's thoughts. And I said, wow, because it's very well put together. It's very logical. It breaks down the fallacies of the idea behind this place being for our own good or for lessons. And you know, it talks about things about how, like I mentioned before, this place is a system of hierarchy set up for each being to feed on each other, right? The idea of justice is just a virtue that we try to accomplish here, infinitely and without resolution, because the more you try and create justice for one being, the more you'll create injustice for another being, right? So if your goal is to say, feed all lions, right, and you create a picket fence and you want justice for the lions, they need to be fed. Well, what do the lions feed on? Antelopes. So then it becomes injustice for the antelopes. Who's more just? The antelope running for its life, or the lion satisfying its hunger? Right? You can't win. Wherever you create harmony, you will create a form of chaos to balance out this matrix. That's why it's easily shown in astrology. We have signs and opposite signs. We have the idea in Chinese astrology of friendly signs and enemy signs, right? There is a delicate balance to this whole system, yet it's been abused and created a much harsher format to it in terms of that, right? And this idea of, oh, you need dark to know the light. No, you don't need light or dark to know the light. They exist as combination of each other, as dual poles. So maybe here you may need that, but outside of that, it may be something completely different, right? It may not be what we actually know of as light. So in terms of finding out the truth, we have to apply, like this book says, a spherical perspective, which is something that I've been trying to do on this channel, of accumulating all these experiences, all these perspectives, being able to see from multiple perspectives to then create an absolute truth, especially the truths that are paradoxical to each other, right? I've said for a while that source is the accumulation of all the relative truths to create that absolute truth. And to be able to hold two paradoxical viewpoints in relation to each other, seemingly paradoxical, and find the commonality, right? Find what connects them together. Then this is much better achieved when looking from a more spiritual, non-materialistic viewpoint, because you then encompass more ideas, more perspectives, rather than just a strictly material, strictly science, strictly observation-based, right? So I think that's it for now regarding that idea. It's a lot to take in. Hopefully you got some of my points, some of my arguments. I try to structure them as logically as possible, but if you find inconsistencies in what I'm saying, do leave a comment below. Do mention it. Continue the conversation. Let me know what you thought. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for future content, and I'll see you guys next time.